Hello everybody, and welcome to College Information Week, Night 4, Episode 2, The Importance of Historically Black Colleges and Universities. I'm Jeff Griffa, one of the college counselors at McQuaid, and I'm here with our presenter, McQuaid Jesuit Class of 2015, Mr. Virgil Parker. We're also joined by Mr. Shamir Bridges, a current senior at McQuaid Jesuit. Virgil Parker graduated from Howard University, a historically black university in Washington, D.C. in 2021. Hailing from Rochester, New York, and born to teenage parents, Parker was raised mainly by his mother and maternal grandmother. He was also fortunate to have the love and support of other family and community members who stepped in to care for him and his mother at times. Without much income nor assets, Parker and his family were able to survive with some help from government programs like Section 8, housing, food stamps, and Social Security. As a new college graduate, he is dedicating his career to social equity and community empowerment largely because he understands the role that community support can play in one's future. Parker's mother encouraged him to attend one of the nation's 105 historically black colleges and universities, and he chose Howard. According to Parker, "My mother wanted me to attend a school that had a rich and historic legacy, and one that could help me get closer to my cultural roots as a black individual." He added, "I chose Howard University because of its ability to produce significant leaders in areas of politics, entertainment, and social justice." Parker hopes to follow in the footsteps of those who have graduated from Howard and to have a significant influence and impact on society. Howard shaped Parker as a person in deep and significant ways. As he recalls, the HBCU helped him to become a more selfless, authentic, perseverant, well-rounded individual who is committed to helping people. Attending an HBCU opened Parker's mind to the types of success that black people could accomplish. Coming from an impoverished background, Parker noted that he did not have access to black leadership as they weren't very visible to him in his community. He shared, "Entering Howard University was my first time seeing so many black leaders in politics, academia, corporate America, and countless other areas." Parker was inspired to attend an HBCU because it gave him a glimpse into what black people called black excellence. In his efforts to bring about social equity and empower communities, Parker is highly supportive of HBCUs, regularly hosting events focused on these historic institutions and encouraging others to give philanthropically to HBCUs and consider them for their education. According to Parker, "I support HBCUs because they are sacred places that are important to both American history and global black and brown communities. I fight hard for HBCUs because I love the fact that they have produced significant leaders in so many areas, including civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr., entertainer Oprah Winfrey, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, U.S. Representative John Lewis, and so many others." Recently, Parker partnered with both the Aspen Institute and the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy to bring attention to social equity issues. He worked with the Aspen to produce a series to talk about the future of HBCUs in the COVID era. He also partnered with Lilly to have a conversation about increasing philanthropic impact for communities and institutions of color. Lastly, he represented Howard as an HBCU competitiveness scholar for the White House Initiative on HBCUs. The role allowed Parker to work with other HBCU students and be a connector between federal resources and opportunities for HBCUs. Currently, Mr. Parker resides in Rochester and works as a news producer at WHEC TV, News 10 NBC. So without further ado, Mr. Virgil Parker and Shamir Bridges.
You know what I mean?
So I'll just tell y'all, this is gonna be real informal. And he's cool, real informal. Y'all can ask questions. It's the only thing is gonna be a conversation, no formality. Call me Virgil, all that, will be real cool. I'm really interested in talking with y'all. So anything's on the table, y'all feel free to ask what y'all want to do. But homeboy here gonna run the show. So go ahead.
All right. Well, we can start with, we're at McQuaid. So, how was your experience at McQuaid?
Yeah. So full transparency, I wasn't I love McQuaid. It was a great school for me. It changed my life. It still changed my life. That's why I always give back. But McQuaid for me, I struggled a little bit. One, because wasn't the best student. So obviously I hear this time and time again. You got to worry about your academics. While I did play football, I did do speech and debate, I did do other things. Sometimes I struggled to stay eligible because my head wasn't always on my shoulders. And in addition to that, I'm from the inner city. It was hard sometimes to be here and integrate socially. I noticed there was a big cultural difference from where I come from. I didn't come from a two-parent household. I didn't come from a lot of money. Didn't come from a lot of wealth. So I had a lot of differences. Y'all know differences than a lot of our peers here. But despite that, I still felt a lot of love, particularly amongst the administrators, people like Mr. Griffith, people like Mama G. We literally called her Mama G because she looked after us. But even through, some of the struggle and differences, McQuaid prepared me to be in a world where, you are going to be sometimes a minority. People aren't going to understand you. You're going to be an anomaly. You're going to have to consistently explain yourself. And we can talk more about that later. I had to explain my decision to one of my classmates in depth. I won't give a name, but in depth as to why I went to HBCU. So McQuaid was a special place for me, but it's a place that still, just prepared me for some challenges for who I was. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And going from McQuaid to Howard. Well, first, what made you decide Howard out of all the HBCUs?
Yeah. So part some of y'all didn't hear this. For me, at the time, being at McQuaid, all types of different schools were being suggested to me. From the Georgetowns, to the Ivy League, some of the great state schools. But when it came to historically black colleges or even minority serving schools in general, those actual name minority serving institutions.
Yeah.
It was my mother who told me about it. She said, I want you to look into what Howard is, what Morehouse is, what Hampton is, what Xavier is, all these incredible schools. You got FAMU, you got Tuskegee, you got Prairie View. I mean, some of the best schools in the country, period, whether in HBCU reality or just, strong legacies. I had never heard of them until my junior year of high school. I had, and it amazes me. Y'all, you guys be on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. You see people who get acceptance letters from HBCUs and other schools who just are so excited, like they got the pride, they got that joy, right? I was happy I got into Howard, but that pride and joy wasn't there for me because I had never heard of the school, right? And that's just to my ignorance. But these are schools who had incredible legacy. So my mother taught me about them. Howard was my very first acceptance. But however, being at McQuaid, thinking that going to a historically black college wasn't the best decision, I still was like, I got to get into a Georgetown, I got to get into a Fordham Prep, I got to get into a NYU. That's because I thought I was validated by getting into those top tier schools. But when you settle down and you look at the history of black colleges, some of the names he mentioned, from Dr. King to Oprah Winfrey to now Kamala Harris to John Lewis, you name some of the best, strongest pioneers in our history, in global history, they went to black colleges, right? Oprah went to Tennessee State. John Lewis went to Fisk. Martin King, he went to Morehouse. I mean, these colleges have real strong, impressions in our culture throughout history, right? Over 150-year-old schools. So it was a proud decision for me. When I looked it up, I saw names y'all would know. Taraji went to Howard. Nick Cannon went to Howard. Miss Felicia Rashad, Mrs. Huxley went to Howard. Chadwick Boseman, that may he rest in peace. Black Panther, he went to Howard. I said, I got to be a part of this legacy. Thurgood Marshall, so on and so forth. So my mother taught me about it, and it reassured me that it was a good decision to pick that kind of school.
So with an HBCU or Howard, how does Howard compared to primarily white college? And there's sometimes people kind of assume that HBCUs aren't on the same level.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's obviously because it's a historically black college.
Right.
But what are how pretty much equally as
It's there. Let me tell you something. Even just based off the few names that I mentioned before, HBCUs will prepare you for the real world. They are just on par with any other institution you can go toe to toe with, right? I mean, when I was at Howard, we did a debate competition against Harvard University. You have schools like Georgetown who we do peer-to-peer programs with. Academically, you're going to come out just as strong as anywhere else. I'm serious, right? Howard, the highest Howard has been ranked. Howard is the number 2 HBCU in the country. The highest Howard has been ranked was 80th in the country. It's that ranking wise, it's still a great position. HBCUs still rank very well against other schools in the country. But even beyond ranking, you get the best, you still get great education in the classroom. You got professors just like at PWIs who have taken years to study whatever their craft is, whatever their trade. They've done research, they publish books, they publish novels, they publish all types of articles. When something major happens, say in the news, they get pulled on by CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, what have you, all type of major news outlets that come on television and talk about problems, legal issues, what have you, right? These are experts who've been in the craft, black, white, what have you, all types of teachers come through all types of students come through, black colleges, and you prepared, to get ushered into the real world. At HBCUs, you still have job fairs. All the top companies in the country, you name them, came through campuses like at Howard and other HBCUs. We had Apple, Goldman Sachs, Facebook, or now Meta, Twitter. All the top tech companies and businesses all come to recruit at HBCUs, right? Because they know they're going to get top tier talent. You get those internship opportunities. It prepares you for the real world. To hear because you're going into a predominantly black college, it's not the real world, that's a myth, right? Because the teachers push you. Just like we have guidance counselors here at McQuaid, you got counselors at whatever HBCU you're going to go to. And they get you ready with your resume, interview skills, professional skills, training, ask questions. There's professionals who went to your HBCU who are at these top companies, many of them executives now who come back to have conversations like we're doing right now. They'll have chats, they'll come and teach classes, and they say, we're going to get you ready to not only be successful in the internship program, but you're going to graduate, you're going to get the job, and you're going to, do well. So it's a myth to think that just because it's an HBCU and it may not be ranked as high as some other schools, that it's not going to prepare you, because that's not true. Howard did prepare me for the real world, and I see a lot of my peers in my class doing exceptional things. One girl I graduated with, she graduated 2 years ago, and she just won an Emmy for journalism. She's only 25 years old or something like that. I mean, you get people who have all types of accomplishments. So these are incredible schools, and companies know, employers know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, anybody can ask questions.
So if you don't mind me asking, what did you major in at Howard?
So I changed my major a few times. I ended up with journalism, because I wanted to work in television, wanted to do something in communication. So I ended up with journalism.
Do you think that through your major you had help? You had tutors to help you through your processing?
100%. So a couple things to that. So yes, you have professors, just like here, you have the chair of a department, you have professors, you have deans of the schools, you have assistants deans. If you are struggling, all you gotta do is talk to your professor, talk to your chair, and say, hey, I need help, and so on and so forth. And they will put you in contact either with another student, another professor, another teacher, what have you, who can help you. It's the same resources available like any other school, right? And they'll look out for you, and they really take time to invest in you and want to see you succeed. It's like being at a black college, being black, it's like being like home away from home. These people want to see you thrive, right? From the president of the university down to whatever entry-level teacher, they want to see you succeed, and they will take the time with you. Now, there's some issues, there's some complications, of course, like any other school. But absolutely, if you're struggling, they're not going to just sit there and let you struggle.
Right.
They're going to point you to the right resources, whether it's internal, external, and you form study groups, and you have all types of the facilities and resources available, books, libraries, what have you. But one of the largest, there's a thing at Howard specifically, there's something called the Moreland Springard Center. It's in Founders Library, which is it's considered a national treasure. But it's considered one of the largest African-American research repositories in the country, I think in the world, actually, for so much literature and books and knowledge. Everything you can imagine is there. These are research institutions. And you know how I'm going to say this, and anyone else can ask a question. But HBCUs have to be accredited by the same national institutions that accredit PWIs. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but any college and university, for your degree to have merit, has to go through an accreditation process by a national entity. I believe it's led by the Department of Education, but please fact check me on that. Those same entities that accredit PWIs have to accredit HBCUs. They have to pass. So once you have the accreditation, that means you have the validation from the Department of Education that your degree is going to mean something when you put it on the desk to an employer and say, hey, I graduated from Hampton, I graduated from Morehouse, Spelman, what have you. This is what my degree in, this is my track. I'm qualified to meet the expectations of your job profession. You're going to do it. You're going to make it. And you will realize that when you get into the real world, a lot of people graduated from minority serving institutions and HBCUs, and they do well, especially in leadership positions. So it's valid.
All right.
You're the moderator, so I'm going to take over.
So I know, like with me, you probably had it was like a big transition to coming to McQuaid, from your background and stuff. Do you feel like you had to take another transition, coming from an all-white school and then going back to, and being with your people, or do you feel like it was more natural?
It was a transition for me, it was a tough transition for me coming from McQuaid to Howard. I'm gonna be real. At first, I didn't know if I liked it. When I got to Howard, I was there just for a couple months. I'm like, man, I don't know if this is the right fit for me. I had not been around this kind of cultural experience. I felt unfortunate that I wasn't really connected with, as you say, my people. Maybe I should try to go to a Georgetown or GW. But I confided in some friends about that, you're gonna find students at HBCUs who came from PWIs, who came from predominantly black or multicultural high schools, and some of them have the same experiences. With time, you will learn to integrate. There is a community for everybody at a black college, everybody, right? And I want to debunk the myth. Black colleges, while there's a lot of people who look like us, they're not exclusively for black people. So you'll have people from Hispanic backgrounds, white, Asian, what have you, but there's a community for everybody. With time, after the first semester, matter of fact, in the middle of the first semester, I began to love Howard. I absolutely began to love Howard because there was a space for me. There are people who will connect with you, people from around the world. Let me be clear with you. Black colleges are international institutions, right? There was, I believe, in my class alone, I think over 50 colleges represented, or excuse me, countries. We definitely had every state represented, right? There's state clubs, but you get to intermingle with people from the Caribbean, from Africa, from Europe, from South America, right? And they come there and they look for that same cultural academic experience. And will it be a struggle for a lot of people? Sure. It's a struggle for international students. Our culture in America doesn't match every other place in the world. But over time, you find that confidence and that pride and that love and that brotherhood, that sisterhood in people who are stranger to you at first, but after a while, you start to intermingle. So yes, was it a hard transition for me? It was. But after some time, after I found my roots in being authentic, learning more about my culture, having love of who I was as a person, you're taught to love yourself and love the people next to you for real. It becomes more comfortable. It becomes more natural, and you're better for it. That's 100%. For sure.
Kind of going off of that, with it being two different, come from McQuaid to Howard's, two different kind of vibes and cultures. Did it help you, find yourself being around people like that look like us?
Yes, absolutely. So I quickly, found a big brother on campus, a mentor. I think at the time he was a senior when I got there my freshman year. He gave the exact same advice to me as somebody gave to him when he was a freshman, sophomore. He said, "You will not leave Howard the same way you come in. Howard changes you, whether you want it or not. It can be for the better or worse. It's up to you. But organically, you will change. But we mature. We leave our house at 18, 17 years old, go out into the real world, and try to find ourselves in 4 years, figure out what we want to do for the rest of our life, try to get a degree in something. But you don't only grow in the classroom intellectually, you got to grow socially. You have to grow socially, right? Because there's so much things around you that you learn how to balance different peer pressures, different social anxieties, different requirements of you socially. You absolutely change. And they're just like at a PWI, there are hundreds, I'm not even exaggerating, a couple hundred social clubs that are open to you, from anything from robotics. I did speech and debate. You can have all types of social clubs related to the Caribbean social club, and obviously you have fraternities and sororities, which are big. I did not pledge, but which is a big part of the legacy and just experience at HBCUs or colleges. Period. They mold you, right? We're from Rochester. Somebody from New Orleans or Louisiana can become your best friend. All of a sudden, you learn about Southern culture. Somebody from Ghana, Africa, become your best friend. All of a sudden, you learn about African culture. Somebody from Italy can become your best friend. All of a sudden, you learn about European culture, and you're teaching them your culture at the same time. People want to grow. We all bring something new to the table. I think I went down to Howard with a girl from Mercy who was in my class. Her and I think, were the only two people in Rochester from our year. So we it's like we have to have each other's back, and there's not a lot of people, like us here who may know where we come from. Her and I both came from PWIs. We went down there at first it was a hard transition, but over time, she found her place. She's doing very well, got a master's degree, out doing really good work. I'm doing what I'm doing. You find yourself, and you become more comfortable, more organic, and more authentic. And people, you'll tell, even in that first semester, when you come home during Thanksgiving break, or you come home during Christmas break, you begin to move, and you think, and you interact different. I mean, your different love for appreciation for music and different foods, and just you can tell you grow and grow more as the times go on. So I definitely was a different person. It taught me how to be more authentic. That was one of the biggest takeaways I have from Howard. Is at the end of the day, people feel you and they love you for what you bring to the table with your heart and your personality. Don't do and say things that you think people want to hear you say. Be who you are, and people will attract to you more, and they attach to you, and that's real. So being authentic is huge, particularly amongst our culture, as we understand.
So talking about, finding a space for you at Howard, so specifically, how many majors or minors are there?
A lot.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. So there were 13 or 14, now 14 colleges within the university. Universities are a system. So anywhere from business, you got marketing, you got finance, you got all types of different business majors. Within communications, you got journalism, you got legal communications, you got all types of those, television and film, fine arts, you got political science, you got biology, chemistry, you name it. These all types of majors you would think about any other school exist at HBCUs, right? Now, not every HBCU. So Howard, I think, has the only hospital, and this is not me just bragging about, even though I am biased, bragging about Howard, but I want you guys to know that you will get the same experience at HBCUs. I believe Howard has the only hospital at the HBCU, the only television station, the only radio station. All that to say, other schools, other HBCUs do have law schools, they have medical schools, so on and so forth. We have a school of pharmacy, we have a school of dentistry, right? All these professions that you hear about, there's some statistic, I think it's either 56 or 65% of the black dentists in this country graduated from Howard, right? Because we offer that experience, right? And people who want to, get into a good program, be at a historically black college, meet the legacy of historically black leaders, or alum or students, they go to these types of institutions. It exists, right? All the professions you guys want to name. What do you want? You know what you want to major in college?
Sports medicine.
We have it.
Biology.
We have it.
Biology.
We have it. We have it. Anybody else? Anyone else in the major? What is it? We have it. Anybody? We have it.
A major in psychiatry and whatever.
We have it. It exists. We have a school of social work. All that. Anything y'all want to dream about, it's there at HBCUs. You can find what you want. You can declare it. International relations, international affairs. So absolutely, it exists. And again, these programs, these majors have to go through accreditation processes. For your degree to have merit, and before you set your degree before an employer, it has to have gone through an accreditation process in order for it really to be considered. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, competitive.
You really strongly be considered as a candidate for those jobs. So
Yeah.
you're going to come out in a strong capacity. Sure.
So graduating from McQuaid, do you think your academic process helped you to make Howard the education there easier? Do you think it set you up for the victory?
Well, as I said in the beginning, I struggled at McQuaid. Virgil personally, I personally, I started taking my academics more seriously when I got to Howard. But absolutely, this is a college prep school here at McQuaid. You will be able to leave here and do well academically nearly anywhere. I have people from my class who went to the Ivy Leagues, went to Carnegie Mellon, who went to Georgetown, and they excel. So you will be able to do the work, right? Now, you will be challenged. We need to be clear, especially for the bio majors. biology, chemistry, and engineering students, they did not sleep. They did not. A lot of them did not sleep. And college is real. It's real. It's tough, especially if computer science. Yeah, you sleep maybe once a week. I'm sick. It's tough, right? You're gonna be challenged. You really are. But but to that point, what it teaches you is like we're taught here at McQuaid is time management, right? Study skills. You have to do it. Study groups are a huge thing in college, right? You meet people in your major, even outside of your major, because some of the core classes, like you take some of the basics, math, science, what have you, before you get into your actual major courses. Is another term for it. But you form study groups with those students. There's people who struggled in math or basic science in high school who you may have excelled. So you're like, oh, let's have a study group together. I'll help you out. You can help me. As a comms person, you got to take some of those courses. But yeah, you can end up doing well when you confide in each other, and it's gonna take some commitment at the academic level. Yeah.
Do you think taking like APs in high school is worth it for college help?
I think so. I didn't take any APs, but there were students who came into college advanced. Like there was one girl who came into freshman year. She was already qualified to be a sophomore. She took so many APs in college, and it opened up because she did that. Right, it opened up so many possibilities for that particular student to do different social activities. Right, because she was qualified to do things as a freshman coming in with so many credits that we couldn't get as freshmen. It opened you up to explore different minors and electives because it's like, listen, I'm here. I already got X, Y, and Z classes already out of the way. Let me go take some electives that are inside or outside of my minor because you want to learn and explore more. Right. So it's definitely worth it, right? The more you can, while in high school, prepare yourself for college in any way. Like by the time you get there, you're going to have more opportunity available to you. You can focus on internship experience, right? Some students I don't know how they do it, but there are some students who will intern every semester. Every semester, it's not required for you to get a job, but they said, listen, I want to beef up my resume and be ready for when I graduate, and I can come out the door saying, because by the time you graduate, your entry level jobs are asking for 30 years experience anyway, right? So you gotta be able to position yourself. I'm only joking, partially. But that internship experience is important for you, right? There's some people who say, if I can balance an internship in addition to my classes, take a full course load, I'm going to do it, right? When you have to take a few less classes and still be full-time because you did AP courses, now you have more time to dedicate to your internship, and you look that much more valuable to an employer, or you can participate more in the social club. Absolutely, is ready. Any way you can prepare yourself. But even if you take no AP, I didn't take a single AP before I got into college, right? And I still use my time at Howard valuably, right? Talk to my guidance counselor, talk to older students, and listen, I didn't take any APs obviously, but how can I position myself to be really good, in these next 4 years after college? And there's so many opportunities available for you. Even outside of social clubs and sports, obviously, is an opportunity, and obviously what happens in the classroom. There are fellowships, right? Fellowships are types of internships where you can get paid, you can get scholarships, fellowships, or where you get paid to get certain experiences, whether it's working or academic, and like the university or whatever foundation who partners with the university will literally pay you to do whatever type of track you're doing in that particular profession, and you gain experience that way. I had what was called the Patricia Roberts Harris Fellowship. Patricia Roberts Harris, she was the first. She's a Howard grad. She was the first black woman to become an ambassador for the United States. She was the ambassador, I believe, to Luxembourg. She was also the first black woman to ever be appointed as a cabinet secretary for the President of the United States. So you know how we have the Secretary of Education, Secretary of State, executive. She was the first black woman to serve in that position. Her legacy, I believe her family, or I can't remember, or maybe her estate, created a foundation specifically for Howard students. She's a Howard alum, to help students who want to get involved in public affairs. So that means anybody who wants to get involved in public relations, you see in media, how we can get, McQuaid has a PR person, right? How we can promote McQuaid or whatever the brand to the community. That public affairs relationship is so valuable that she said, I'm going to give a scholarship to students who want to explore in this profession, whatever job internationally or domestically applies under public relations or international relations, and we'll pay them to go get a job take whatever course experience, yada, yada, yada. And now that's a fellowship opportunity, very competitive, that I was able to be a part of. You know, stuff like that matters, right? And that also helps you beef up your resume and your experience, again, to look more valuable either to an employer or to another graduate school if you want to go get a PhD or a master's, or et cetera. That makes sense? Yeah.
So the question says McQuaid, but I feel like this could go for, you know, schools in Rochester in general. And I was just wondering, what do you think is needed to, you know, transition, I guess not just black students, but students, period, about, you know, HBCUs, and how do we, you know, create more exposure for these schools?
For HBCUs, you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, these types of conversations, you know, I was just thanking Mr. Griffa and Miss Little Mama G earlier because, you know, when I was here, you know, we didn't have these types of organic conversations as much. Again, I learned about HBCUs and MSIs from my mother. But the fact that y'all doing this right now, when y'all, what do you guys do, all seniors, freshmen, juniors, sophomores, seniors?
Yeah, it's
Y'all
amazing.
here in this room having this conversation about this is amazing, right? Earlier today, I had asked Miss Coletto. I said, you know, how many McQuaid alum went to Howard, or, you know, and they're not that many. You know, there are a couple people who were younger than me who ended up going to other HBCUs, and some were older. But it's like, man, whenever we can bring those alumni back, those students, you know, Mr. Griffith was telling me how he reached out to Howard and there's other HBCUs, to the admissions counselors, to get those administrators on our campuses. Right? Those are the experiences you want to do. You know, whenever I think there's a HBCU fair that happens at the convention center, Mama G, you know, she's the first to raise her hand to say, all right, who wants to come down and go to the convention center to meet all these HBCUs? Those are the type of opportunities that that schools have to take in. Whenever there are some parents, right? Mr. Griffith was telling me about. There's some parents who went of some of your peers who went to HBCUs, right? Bring those parents in to talk to other parents, right? To say, hey, I went to an HBCU. I'm doing this as a profession. I'm doing well. My student goes to the same school you can go to. You know, your kid goes to. Let me talk to y'all why going to an HBCU or an MSI is important. That takes top down, to an extent, leadership from the administrators of whatever school. To your point, not just McQuaid, to organize that, to recognize that. Saying we need to get these other opportunities at least positioned to our students, right? To say, hey, here's a consideration. Let's work with the parents. Let's work with the alumni. Let's work with current students who care about HBCUs to say, how can we form these kind of conversations? Just ask questions. All of this is a talk or a conversation. But then when you open your eyes and say, listen, just based upon the alumni alone, HBCU has a vice president in the White House. Just based upon alumni alone, you know that these are good opportunities, right? I mean, Oprah is considered one of the pioneers in television. Again, an HBCU alum. Just based upon that alone, you can have, there's some sense of validation that these schools are qualified. High schools have to begin doing that, working with the parents, again, students and alumni, to have these kind of conversations, and the universities, because these colleges will send people. Sometimes it might be hard, but they'll send people up to have conversations with high school students. You got to encourage that as much as possible. That's important.
Yeah.
That's how we have it.
Mm-hmm.
So me looking right now at for my number one, like a preferred white institution, do you think I should reconsider coming up with Howard? Do you think I should reconsider and look more into it for research and everything?
Let me be clear, especially getting to college period is amazing, right? I'm not going to deter you from applying to a PWI. You know, I'm not going to say you just apply to Howard specific. I have pride in my university, but you will get a good education at any HBCU. But wherever you can get into college is amazing, right? That is, I'm not even joking, y'all. That is an accomplishment. There's a lot of people who, especially who look like us, who don't get into post-secondary opportunities, and you got to consider that. So if you get into college, that's a round of applause in itself. But put anything on the table that you feel like is important as a possibility, right? Absolutely consider it. Absolutely consider it from the Morehouses. I mean, from people like Spike Lee to Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, There are prominent people who went to these schools who are doing. You can't debate these people at the top of their crafts, at their professions. And Spike Lee and Samuel L. Jackson, just like Dr. King, will always have a legacy in this country because of what they've been able to provide and be able to create. You know, it just takes a little bit of research. You asking questions to your peers, to your parents, to your administrators. Ms. Galetto, Mr. Griffith will be happy to answer questions for you. But I'm not going to say to you, don't consider any PWIs, just all focus on HBCUs. No, do what's important here, because let me be clear with you. There are students of all races who go to PWIs, and they do exceptionally well, right? So, yeah, what we just want to do is just make sure that you know this opportunity is available. And if you have more questions, which is natural, be able to answer, just ask those questions. I'm gonna get to you, well, it's his show, I'm not gonna take over, but you can ask questions, man. But I wanted to say this, I wanna get this story in. When I got accepted into Howard University, and I asked Ms. Galetto, she gave her picture, my senior picture, she put my picture on the wall. I actually had to defend my decision to go to Howard I think I mentioned to a couple of my classmates. One of my classmates, in specifically, again, not naming a name, but he said to me, he asked in 2015, is having a black college exclusively for black students, isn't that racist? And, I wish I had the knowledge I had now back then, because I would have, not in an aggressive or confrontational way, but I would have spoke to my brother and like, first of all, it's a myth HBCUs are exclusive for black students. That's just not the case, right? While HBCUs historically, a lot of them were founded out of the black churches, black ministers, in conjunction with many philanthropists, a lot of them white, for freed black people, right, at the time in the 1800s. There were white students who went to these campuses. The first few students at Howard were white. The founder of Howard University was white. The first several presidents of Howard University were white, right? So let me be clear with you. It's not just for black people, but the purpose inherently, because of discrimination, HBCUs were founded because of racism, not to be racist, right? They weren't founded to be exclusive. I had never heard of HBCUs or any minority serving institution, but particularly HBCUs, saying we're not admitting students because of their race. Unfortunately, their counterparts have done that historically, right? But it's a whole different approach, and it's like, just because we're living a different racial climate, which we do, obviously times have changed very drastically since the 1800s. These schools are so significant to our history that you don't just tell them to close their doors, because we are allowed to integrate now into these colleges and universities. I mean, think about it. What even led to the integration of schools? Not to get into history, but you have Brown versus Board of Education. If you're not familiar with that, look up that Supreme Court law. The lawyer who led that law, that case in the Supreme Court was Thurgood Marshall. He went to Howard, right? The first black woman to get a law degree in this country was a woman named Charlotte Ray. She graduated from Howard Law School, right? These schools are so instrumental and have been so fundamental and so critical to the nation's history, not just black people advancement, but to our nation's history, right? We are able to go to school in McQuaid because of the Supreme Court decisions like the Brown versus Board of Education, which was led by an HBCU alum, several of them, right? That's important. I just wanted to emphasize that, right? To help further validate. It's just an opportunity for you to consider.
So like you said, you mentioned that you struggled at McQuaid.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything, like when you went to Howard, that really pushed you to succeed, or was there anything that was it like a rude awakening because of how you struggled at McQuaid? Was there like something that made you like wake up and really,
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the alumni. So at HBCUs, the alumni are very, 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 very invested. Now you'll hear stories about how alumni don't always give back. HBCU alumni don't always give back financially. There is some truth to that, but that's been improving over the years. I'm not gonna get into this, but there's a generational wealth component that's applied to this. When there's not a lot of generational wealth within the black community, which you can look that up statistically, it's limited. There's not a lot of discretionary wealth to give back to even schools and their alma maters. That's a fact. That's not even an opinion. That's a fact. But in addition to that, there are alum. We are huge on mentorship. We are huge. Mr. Griffith could ask me to come back and give this conversation 100 times, and 100 out of 100 times I would likely say yes, because we. It is a rule, particularly within our culture, that nobody, from Barack Obama to anybody to Oprah Winfrey, we cannot afford not to give back to our people, right? With our knowledge, our intellectual knowledge, our experience, and our wisdom is one of the most valuable tools that we can use to help people. I love the fact that y'all are asking questions and being engaged, because all I can do is give you answers based on my experience. But alumni who are at these companies, who some of them have started big companies, but who are at these companies where you guys want to get internships and full-time jobs, they will literally come back with internship opportunities in their hand from their company saying, listen, who wants to do an on-site interview, who wants to get hired, who has questions about what it's like working in this profession. These are executives from some of them CFOs, COOs, some CEOs, some whatever, chief officers in their respective companies from all HBCUs doing extremely, extremely well. That is why I was able to take it seriously. Because at the end of the day, these are no-nonsense people. They're like, listen, the world is not going to give you but so many chances. You're going to have to step up to the plate at the end of the day. If you want to slack, you want to procrastinate, you'll just get passed over. Sometimes by people, who look of different cultures and races, but sometimes by your own people. Right? You'll get passed over. You don't have time, to invest so much into you just for you to continue to fail and not step up to the plate. So you get inspired to see the success of so many people who come from where you're coming from to go into the real world and apply themselves, and they excel. Seriously, that's what pushes you. But on a personal level, just to answer this question, another thing, and this goes to, there's a financial preparation component I want to emphasize to this. It is a cost like any other college to go to historically black college and university, right? I believe at the time it was about $50,000 or so to go to Howard University, including room and board and tuition. Because of my background and my lack of preparation financially to go to college, I went in 2015, but I had to drop out in 2017. I dropped out that fall. I stayed in D.C. I worked a few jobs, so on and so forth, leveraged some relationships, and I was blessed to get back into school in 2018, graduate in 2021. But then not everybody has that story, right? You got to start preparing now. It's never too late, it's never too soon. It's also never too late, but you got to start preparing now for the cost of living once you get out there in the real world and you're on your own, right? To an extent, some parents was like, listen, if you get in, you gotta hustle on scholarships. You gotta look into institutions like Thurgood Marshall College Fund, the United Negro College Fund. There's Apple, there's McDonald's. I mean, most big, large companies have foundations that give some type of grants and scholarships. You gotta look into those opportunities and apply for those scholarships, because once I got into college, I had to be on the scholarship hustle. And if I knew I was going to stay, especially when I got back into school. But me getting back into school in 2018, it's like I got to keep my head in the grind and apply to colleges, both balance my academics, earn enough money to maintain a living, and worry about the next semester. Because if you don't have the money to pay off your back balance, you can't apply for the following semester. So it's an ongoing hustle. And you won't be the only people like that. A lot of us, just this is the last thing I'll say, a lot of students who go to HBCUs are what is called Pell Grant eligible, meaning we meet a certain threshold, meaning our family income is beneath a certain amount so that we are additionally eligible for certain grants and scholarships. But a lot of people amongst you are going to come from very limited resources. So you can talk to them about, listen, how do I get to this scholarship opportunity, some other scholarship opportunity, and they can help you with the hustle because we look out for each other, so. Thank you for the question.
That's all I got. That's all I got with questions, yeah.
Anybody else have any more questions? No? Well, since he walked in the room, I got to thank, there's people like Coach Dan Bates, who just walked in the room. He was my lineman coach. I heard he was a defensive end. This man taught me a lot. But, opportunity, people like Mr. Griffa, Ms. Galetto, Coach Dan Bates, they make a big difference for you here at McQuaid. You will find those same type of people who care about you on administrative and academic and teacher level at HBCUs. And they will be like your parent away from home. I am so serious about that. Even from the cafeteria lady, you will find relationship amongst those people, And if they can see something in you that you don't see in yourself, they will push you, push you, push you, push you, and absolutely push you. You need to welcome that because those people want to see you thrive. Those 4 years will blow by. You'll have fun. It's a fun time. You know, we didn't talk about this, but it's a really fun time to go to these colleges. You'll party, you'll have a good time. But at the end of the day, even at the parties, everybody's about you got to hustle in your academics. It's not cool to be at every party, but then to have a 2.5 GPA. You'll get called out for it. I'm serious. I was called out for it here at McQuaid, but my peers, you will definitely be called out for it in college, especially at HBCU, because your peers will look at you crazy. Like, dude, you only got 4 years here. Either A, you're going to get kicked out, or when it's time to graduate, you're not going to get any offers because you're not doing well. So you can't party, and not have your credits in your academics, right? So that's equally important. So I just want to say thank you to people like Coach Bates and all for being there for me.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say thank you to our wonderful audience here and to Shamir Bridges and Mr. Virgil Parker. Thanks everyone for making this, I think, a really informative and great experience for everyone. So that's all we got for you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.